Hello there, beautiful people. About a week and a half ago, ESPN released their top 10 quarterbacks entering the 2025 NFL season. They do this every single year before the year. They name their top 10 quarterbacks, and they have some quotes from anonymous sources from opposing coordinators and executives and things like that, and I always find it very interesting. And so I decided to see whether or not I agree or disagree with their placement of the quarterbacks in their top 10. The video begins right after this break. Before I begin, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's video, Factor. Factor makes meeting your nutrition goals easier than ever by delivering fresh, never frozen, dietitian-approved meals right to your doorstep. Their team of gourmet chefs create each meal using only ingredients with integrity to help you feel your best all day long. Skip the overpriced takeout trap. Factor is cheaper and way more delicious. Get chef-crafted, restaurant-quality meals delivered right to your door. They're ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes, which means more time for you. Choose from a weekly menu of 35 options, including popular options like Calorie Smart, Keto, Protein Plus, or Vegan and Veggie. You can also discover more than 60 add-ons every week, such as breakfast, on-the-go lunch, snacks, and beverages to help you stay fueled and feel good all day long. So, what are you waiting for? Get started today and fuel up for your springtime goals. I've been sponsoring Factor now for several years, and I can tell you with 100% sincerity, these guys are the real deal. If you have not yet joined Factor or have given Factor a try, you are missing out big time. Head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code 50berry to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first Factor box. That's code 50berry at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. The number one quarterback, according to ESPN, is Patrick Mahomes, which, let's be honest, is not surprising. He is the main character of the league, but there are mentions in his segment about how the last 2 seasons statistically have not been great for him. Purely just going off of statistics over the last 2 years in the regular season, Mahomes is not the best quarterback in the league, and I feel like that's evidenced in the fact that somebody in the panel ranked him as the 4th best quarterback in the league. The reason, though, that you're still going to take Mahomes first overall is that come playoff time, there really is no more consistent player in the league right now at the quarterback position, even though the loss in the Super Bowl was a pretty big eyesore. Chiefs run with Mahomes, they've been 7 straight AFC Championship games. They've been in 5 Super Bowls. They've won 3 of them. I don't even think the Super Bowl loss and how terrible he played in that game, I think, changes the fact that he is the best postseason quarterback in the league right now and of all time. I look at one of the quotes. He says, "He's a one-man army and no NFL coach wants to deal with him. Complete dog. No one like him. Maybe Burrow, but Burrow isn't as dangerous as a player." Now, if I'm going to understand that correctly or try to translate that, I would say that he means that Burrow can't run the way Mahomes can when Mahomes decides to run the ball, or that Burrow is just more white, is essentially what that quote means. The one thing with Mahomes is that despite his overall somewhat mediocre stats in the regular season last year, he was still the best in the league on third downs, and that is why the Chiefs really like to prolong games, and a big reason why the Chiefs still finished with a great record was because Mahomes did a great job of draining clock and converting third downs. And so his first 3 or 4 years in the league where he just was putting up insane numbers and throwing bombs to Tyreek and throwing to Kelsey and all that, those days are gone. Kelsey's getting older, although there are still some talented receivers. They have Rashee Rice when he's not in prison. Xavier Worthy flashed some potential. I personally would like to see them use the deep ball more often instead of trying to turn Mahomes into Alex Smith, but that's a Matt Nagy problem. Either way, long story short, yes, I agree with Mahomes being named the best quarterback in the league, but I don't think he'll be able to have another season where he has a mediocre regular season and then turns it on in the playoffs and still be ranked number 1 next year. He has to bounce back and have a vintage Mahomes regular season, MVP caliber season, in order to keep his number 1 spot. Number 2, Josh Allen. This seems to be a theme for Mr. Allen, or Mr. Steinfeld, or whatever the fuck name his hot celebrity wife is who he's married to now. Haley Steinfeld, whatever. Anyway, so yeah, Josh Allen Allen finishing second to Mahomes. We've seen this happen all the time already, so it's no different here. I agree. I think that he is a worthy second best quarterback in the league choice, and I feel like if not for Mahomes, he probably would have 3 or 4 rings by now, at least a couple of rings by now, but unfortunately he keeps running into the Chiefs and they keep barely squeaking by him. It must be absolutely terrible. Biggest problem for Allen when he was earlier or younger in his career was the turnovers, but last year he fixed that. I still don't believe he deserved to win MVP over Lamar Jackson last year, but he still had a great season. An NFC personnel executive said he's done everything. He's answered every test. He makes less mistakes and takes care of the ball. Only thing left to do is win it all. Now, well, if I'm going to be a bit of a nitpicker here, he hasn't done everything if he hasn't won a Super Bowl. I'm just pointing that out, but I get what he's saying. Allen is great under pressure, but he still has an extremely high off-target rate, which, as it says in the article, he had the worst clip among the 18 quarterbacks who received at least 1 vote in this year's top 10. So basically, that wild stallion guy from Wyoming who would throw a bunch of YOLO balls still comes out every now and then. But yes, Josh Allen becoming as great as he has is going to make a bunch of shitty strong-arm quarterbacks a lot of money, and we've already seen that with guys like Anthony Richardson and Will Levis, and it's not going to stop anytime soon. Number 3, Joe Burrow. The highest ranking he got here was 1st. His lowest ranking was 5th. His ranking a year ago was 2, which is funny because he had probably the best individual season of his career last year, but you guys already know the story of Burrow in 2024 by now. Great individual numbers, but the defense was horrible and the Bengals missed playoffs even though they had the passing leader in Burrow, the receiving yards leader, and a Triple Crown winner in Jamar Chase, and the sack leader in Trey Hendrickson. That's some serious San Diego Chargers shit. He won his 2nd Comeback Player of the Year award, which is not an award you should want to win multiple times, but hey, he did it anyway. See, but I will say, this is the type of shit that annoys me because it's very semantical. It's all semantics. Like, there's a quote in the article. If we're talking about playing the quarterback position, nobody is playing it better than him. Okay, so why isn't he number 1 then? Why is he number 3? I feel like nobody plays quarterback position better, but he's not number 1. Okay. Footwork, ball placement, the mental game at the line of scrimmage, feel for the pocket, eye level, finding creases to step up and throw. He's the best right now. And this is my favorite part because it still shows you, like, just to remind everybody that Burrow is white. And he's more mobile than he gets credit for, aka he's white. Again, that's what it really means. I think Burrow is a great quarterback, so I agree with this, although I could also see I wouldn't be disappointed if it was Lamar at 3rd either. I feel like Burrow and Lamar are kind of interchangeable at 3 and 4, so I'll allow Burrow at 3, but I do feel like he's the most overrated quarterback in the league when it comes to clutch time performance. You know, he has this aura, right? And he has like all these fancy suits and these mink coats, and he wears the sunglasses, and he's going off to all these, you know, Met Gala and all this shit, and he wears the sunglasses, and all the girls want to have sex with him, blah blah blah. But so he has this aura of this, you know, unstoppable clutch performer, and he's just not. He hasn't been clutch, not nearly as clutch as his reputation. And even last year, he had some ill-timed turnovers that really hurt the Bengals, and he wasn't responsible for the Bengals missing the playoffs, obviously, but he certainly also had some down moments that a lot of fans and media are overlooking. Number 4, Lamar Jackson. The highest ranking for Lamar on this list is number 1. The lowest ranking is number 6, which to me is just unfathomably stupid. Okay, this is a guy. Lamar Jackson should have won MVP last year. He should have won MVP last year. It was the best season of his career. Again, he's already won 2 MVPs. So this always goes back with Lamar. It's always going to go back to, well, he still hasn't done anything in the playoff. And so it's like, well, how can we give a guy 3 MVPs if he still hasn't done anything in the playoffs? Which again doesn't make any sense since the MVP is supposed to be a regular season award. But it's the same story as always. If you're looking just at last season and producing from last season, Lamar Jackson was the best quarterback in the league. 41 touchdown passes and 4 interceptions. Passer rating of nearly 120. He led the league in basically every fucking category that's important. Touchdown percentage, yards per attempt, adjusted net yards per attempt, passer rating, QBR, net yards per attempt, adjusted net yards per attempt. Oh, and by the way, he also ran for 915 yards and led the league in yards per attempt for the 4th time. And the Ravens went 12-5. It's no coincidence that the only 2 times the Ravens have missed the playoffs in Lamar's 7-year career were the 2 years where he got injured back-to-back in 2021 and 2022. And guess which quarterback and team benefited most from that? That's right, Cincinnati and Joe Burrow. So for my money, I think Lamar is better than Burrow, but I don't think it's egregious, but he should have been MVP last year. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Fame player, and like always, it's always going to come back to playoffs and the fact that, he can't win in the playoffs. Although last year in the playoffs, I thought that he was pretty decent. He had a bad interception and fumble in the Bills loss, but he also made some great throws, and I thought for the most part, again, that he was pretty good in the playoffs last year. But the narrative has already been set, and it's not going to change until he finally breaks through and wins a championship. Number 5, Jaden Daniels. No, wrong. This is fucking wrong. I disagree so badly with this. His highest ranking was 5th. His lowest ranking was 10th. To me, this is CJ Stroud from a year ago, where everyone said CJ Stroud after his rookie year was a top 5 guy, and then he had a sophomore slump. I'm just saying, in recent history, we have seen quarterbacks who had great rookie years. Again, like Dak Prescott's another example of this, where he had an amazing rookie year, and people think that the improvement is just going to be from year to year. It's going to be linear, right? It's going to be easy to follow, and that's not always how it goes. And again, I'm an Eagles fan. I'm biased, but Jaylen Daniels should not be over Jaylen Herz. I just don't think at a certain point, Jaylen Herz having a track record, and people can say, oh, well, he's got a better team around him. Well, okay, he's won a Super Bowl. He's won a Super Bowl MVP. Jaden Daniels never even made a Super Bowl, played 1 year. Okay, so I don't agree with having Jaden Daniels at number 5. I don't disagree with him being in the top 10, but I disagree with him being ahead of a guy like Jaylen Herz, who has won a Super Bowl and has had 2 great performances in the Super Bowl, which is something that most quarterbacks in NFL history cannot say. And the other thing is, and this is just me talking about history, those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. I don't think he's another RG3, but we've seen with Washington that they'll have a good season, and last year was their best season in nearly 3 decades. Expect some regression. They're a prime regression candidate, and if Daniels ends up getting even better and improving and becoming, an MVP winner in his second year, then I'll gladly eat my word. But as of this moment, after just 1 season, I feel like putting him 5th is too high, especially over some other quarterbacks who have won Super Bowls. Number 6, Matthew Stafford. I would also say that I don't disagree with this, but I would not put Stafford ahead of Jaylen Herz. I know or even a guy maybe like Justin Herbert. I feel like it's a weird situation with Stafford because he's really him and Rodgers are like the old guard now. Him, Rodgers, and Russell Wilson are like the old guard in the NFL. And the thing about Stafford is, at least what I feel like, is that when he first came into the league, he entered a league where there were so many great quarterbacks. You had Rodgers, Brady, Manning, Favre, Romo, Rivers, Big Ben, there were so many great quarterbacks that were in his earlier years. And so he was always considered like outside the top 10. But now it's almost like by default, because there are less great quarterbacks, but he's stayed basically the same guy for the most part, that he moves up into the top 10 now, not because he's gotten better, but because the competition level around him has gotten worse. Yeah, and Stafford there's so many qualities to like about him. The highest ranking on this list he has is 4th. The lowest ranking was unranked outside the top 10, which, I don't know. I think he's definitely top 10. It is true they said, he's a truly scheme transcendent quarterback, and I would say that's true because of his arm talent, and he's not afraid to make crazy throws, and he can make crazy throws, and he's fun to watch. But, he has so many tangible qualities to him that you want in a quarterback, and he is one of the better quarterbacks in the league. But there's always just been something missing from Stafford that has prevented him from really ever being a top 1 or 2 quarterback. He has always had the physical tools to be the best quarterback in the league, but he just has too many lean games or lean stretches where you're kind of like, what the hell is going on? Why doesn't he do this? And then when he's on his A game, you say to yourself, how is this guy not the best quarterback in the league? That's the problem with Stafford that he's always had, is consistency. I still can't believe he's won a Super Bowl, especially since the Chiefs have, the Super Bowl that he won is kind of like a side mission almost, because 5 of the last 6 years, the Chiefs have made the Super Bowl. The 1 year they didn't was the year that the Bengals made it and they played the Rams. So the Bengals-Rams Super Bowl was kind of like a fun side mission, right? Almost like for Dragon Ball Z fans, it's almost like, a Garlic Jr. saga or a little filler saga in there before we got back to the regularly scheduled programming of Patrick Mahomes' world. But yeah, I can't believe he's won a Super Bowl still. Number 7, Justin Herbert. His highest ranking was 3rd. His lowest ranking was outside the top 10. He's 27 years old now, and this is essentially he's basically at this point, if you really want to be serious about it, Justin Herbert is a less accomplished version of Lamar Jackson, in the sense that Lamar's got MVPs and he's got a shitload of regular season wins, and historically, Lamar and the regular season is one of the best quarterbacks of all time, but he has playoff bugaboos, right? That is what we're starting to see with Herbert, which is that he's got playoff bugaboos. He's played in 2 playoff games. In the first one, he was mediocre and his team blew a gigantic lead. And then last year versus the Texans, he was absolutely terrible and he threw 4 interceptions. So his playoff numbers are dreadful. He still hasn't won a playoff game to this point of his career, and we're entering year 6 of his career. Again, it feels like we say this every single year, but it seems like he's kind of stalemated. Like, he's still a very good quarterback and he still has freakish physical gifts, but at a certain point, time for you to win some playoff games. And it wasn't like the cupboard was bare for him last year. He had the 3rd ranked defense in the league, and yet the Chargers offense was still mediocre. So at a certain point, it's like, hey man, are you going to be just like another Matthew Stafford, which is what I've kind of been saying for years, or are you going to actually take the leap and become a truly elite quarterback? At this point, I don't know. But again, I don't think he deserves to be over Jaylen Herz. I understand people were saying, oh, if you put Herbert on the Eagles, they would win too. And I'm like, well, that's kind of the whole thing with Herbert is he's if man. He's hypothetical man. He's undefeated in hypothetical scenarios, while Jaylen Herz has never won in a hypothetical scenario. But again, I say this, Justin Herbert has never won a playoff game. His playoff numbers are terrible, and Jaylen Herz, to this point, has a Super Bowl MVP, and if not for his defense, would have 2 Super Bowl rings and 2 Super Bowl MVPs and phenomenal Super Bowl numbers. And he also wins consistently and leads productive off. So I don't understand, and I disagree with Justin Herbert being put above Jaylen Herz, but that's not my problem. Number 8, Jared Goff. His highest ranking in this list, 5, lowest ranking outside the top 10. You know, Goff has had a roller coaster career where he just goes up and down, and the last couple years have been in the up category as he and the Lions have become somehow one of the better teams in the league after decades and decades of being a joke. But they are still the Detroit Lions, and Jared Goff, for all the improvements he's made and for all the credit he deserves for showing that he wasn't just a product of Sean McVay, he still has not been great in the postseason in his career. There was the stinker versus Patriots in the Super Bowl a couple years ago in Super Bowl 53, and then there was the blown lead in the NFC Championship game a couple years ago versus the 49ers, and then last year there was the sloppy season-ending home loss to Washington. It just seems like Goff is not a great big game quarterback, or at least a great playoff quarterback, and at the end of the day, that's really what it comes down to when you're ranking quarterbacks. Whether it's fair or not, you know, like, I think that if a quarterback isn't a great postseason quarterback, that's always going to be held against them, even if they are a very good to great regular season quarterback, which Jared Goff has been in the last couple seasons. But again, would I take him over Jaylen Herz? No, I would not. So overall, I think that him ranking 8th is okay, but he should be moved a slot down or 2, and Jaylen Herz should be well ahead of him. Number 9, finally, number 9, Jaylen Herz. The highest, this is unbelievable to me, the highest ranking Jaylen Herz has in this was number 6, and the lowest ranking was unranked. Again, we hear all the time, and by the way, I disagree with this ranking heavily, as you might have guessed. All the fucking time, what do we hear about quarterback? You want a quarterback that comes through in big games. You want quarterbacks that aren't afraid of the moment. You want quarterbacks that are consistent, that can lead their offense down the field consistently and have a track record of success. Does Jaylen Herz not check off all those boxes? Okay, again, like I said, he is literally 1 or 2 defensive possessions away from having 2 rings right now and 2 Super Bowl MVPs. He's been the best player on the field in 2 Super Bowl, okay? That's something that very few players in the history of the NFL can ever say, and he is one of them. Now, I understand that he does have a great team around. I get that. But people, they fucking have reduced him to being like a Seneca Wallace or a Tyrod Taylor, and it's just ridiculous. This is a guy, he is going to be in the Hall of Fame, Jaylen Herz. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame someday, unless he gets hurt. But Jaylen Herz, I mean, since he's taken over, the Eagles have always had a great offense. His numbers have been great. He might not be a guy that's going to drop back 500 times and throw, and that's the reason a lot of people may have their reservations about him in terms of, oh, you know, he's not a guy you can throw the ball a bunch of times with. He's a low volume type of guy. Very similar to, you know, a Russell Wilson, which is also stated in his blurb that they have. Some people say, you know, he has like a Russell Wilson career arc, but I've never, you know, again, Eagles fan biased, but I've never understood this idea that Jaylen Herz is just this passenger along for the ride when he's one of the best deep ball throwers in the league. And I know probably the biggest gripe people have with him is the tush push. And to that I say, well, how the fuck did the football magically get down to the 1 yard line all of those times for the tush push? Was it just magically placed there? No. Somebody had to help lead the offense down the field to consistently get into position for the tush push, okay? It didn't just magically land on the 1 yard line. It's so similar to how dumbasses discredit LeBron for scoring efficiently on a bunch of dunks and layups. And I'm like, okay, well, if it's so easy, why doesn't your fucking quarterback do it? Why doesn't your team do it? If Jalen Herz is so dog shit and so replaceable, then why don't you just go and find another Jalen Herz and find another guy who can replicate his production and his rushing touchdowns and his offense is being great? Go ahead. I mean, we're talking about like Joe Burrow has T. Higgins. He's got Jamar Chase. The Ravens have a stacked roster. Justin Herbert's got an elite defense. Jared Goff's got Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta. Josh Allen has had numerous elite defenses throughout his career, right? So all of these, oh, well, Jalen plays for a great team, therefore he's not a great, he's just a mediocre player in a great situation. That, to me, that's complete. At a certain point in time, right? If it's been too long now, we have 4 years of this, of Jalen being a highly productive quarterback and leading highly productive offenses and making 2 Super Bowls and winning one now with a Super Bowl MVP. We've gotten to the point now where it's not a fluke and it's not unsustainable. This is just how he plays. And the fact that he's also a mobile threat and can run the ball with his legs is a huge reason why the Eagles offense is successful. So I'll end it there. But yes, I think the way people talk about Jalen Hurts as if he's, Justin Fields or Jamarcus Russell is just so disrespectful. He has to be the most disrespected quarterback in the league right now. And I believe he should be in the top 5. And then finally, number 10, Baker Mayfield. The highest ranking he got was 5th. The lowest ranking was unranked. He's turning 30. Baker Mayfield, I am happy to see Mayfield resurrect his career. One, because I enjoy watching him play, and I always have enjoyed watching him play, but also because the fact that he does well with the Bucs also makes Tom Brady doing well with the Bucs less impressive, at least in hindsight. Now, I understand Baker hasn't won a Super Bowl with the Buccaneers like Brady did, but still, you look at the numbers, Baker's put up better numbers with the Buccaneers than Brady did, so I gotta take the little victories whenever I can. There's a quote in the little blurb for him where it says, "He honestly reminds me of Favre a little bit as far as style of play." Well, that's good. Thank God he's not reminding of Favre off the field. He's got a moxie to him, like, fuck you, I'm on the attack, and defensive guys feel that presence. So I guess if you really want to maybe equate him to a basketball player, you might say he's kind of like a prime Russell West, somebody that is constantly going to put pressure on your defense. He might not always be the most efficient. There's going to be some turnovers, which is what, that's been the Achilles heel for Baker, is that he's had some turnover issues, but he's always going to be forcing the issue. And I think that ranking him 10th is a pretty good spot, a good acceptable spot, maybe even a little bit higher. And I also don't think he gets enough credit for his arm strength, which is also mentioned by somebody in one of the blurbs he has. So that's the top 10. We just do a little quick look at some of the honorable mentions. CJ Stroud, Houston Texans. Last year in these same rankings, he was number 7. Now he's fallen out of the top 10. This is a big year for CJ Stroud because, again, sophomore slump, it's like, hey, was your rookie year a fluke, or is your sophomore season who you really are? And I think you look at him play, you watch him play. My gut tells me he'll be fine, but again, you never really know until the live bullets start flying, you get back out there. I don't think he's forgotten how to throw a football, basically. But, if I don't know if he's going to be able to overcome the offensive line, and if having a bad offensive line and getting sacked a lot is going to ruin his mental game and change the course of his career. And then you got Jordan Love, at the end of 2023, Jordan Love, and I've said this in previous videos, I said Jordan Love was the most overrated player on the Packers, and I agree with, and I still think that because towards the end of 2023, he was amazing. The second half of that year, he had an unbelievable playoff debut versus the Cowboys, and then he threw game-losing interception versus the 49ers in the playoffs that year, and then he comes back 2024, gets hurt in the first game, never really seemed right, still deals with inconsistency, and then he had a horrible playoff loss again versus my Eagles. I still think he benefits from this predestination theory, I guess, where people expect him to become great because his 2 previous predecessors were, all-time great quarterback. I don't know about that. I don't think he's going to be that. He's going to be like the Jeff Garcia to the Montana and Young that Favre and Rodgers were in Green Bay, if that makes any sense. If you know anything about NFL history, you know what I'm talking about. Then other quarterbacks who received some top 10 votes: Kyler Murray, meh. Brock Purdy, I get it because of the numbers. Dak Prescott, yeah, whatever. I mean, Dak is just Dak, whatever. He's not threatening. Aaron Rodgers is surprising. That's basically all off of reputation because he hasn't been good since 2021. Tua Tagovailoa, meh. Again, another numbers selection. His numbers are great, but he still hasn't won really any big games in his career and has concussion problems. Bo Nix getting a vote is also surprising. I still don't really know what to think of Bo Nix. I guess he's better than I thought he would be as a rookie, and he showed some flashes of good play, but I didn't see anything from Bo Nix as a rookie that made me think, wow, this guy's going to be an all-timer or he's on track to be elite. I could be wrong, but who knows? Most of the time I'm not, because I'm an extremely smart guy and I have a very, very gigantic penis.